Welcome back to KSP Breaking Ground. And following on from the end of last episode, we designed this lander. I just put some more solar panels on it. I was going to put these indicator lights on, but they are just like a green light. You can change the color, but they're just like they don't light anything up around them. You can just let you see some things on the side here, and I really want these to light things up around everything if possible. So I'm going to put these lights in, and we're going to put 4 in here. And then I'm just going to go and move them because they're going to stick out the payload fairing otherwise. And we'll press F to change the rotation axis. And make sure I press C so I can move them in smoothly. And no, they're still too big for this axis. That's sort of annoying. We can put them further down. That is an option. Can we actually grab them? Let's just grab them here. Whoops. That was the rest of the rocket. Give me the lights. Come on. There we go. And if we put them there instead, maybe that seems to be more appropriate. And I did also have another set of 4 at the bottom, but given that these are there, let's just get rid of that one. And we can do all this because we've got part count limit of 255, so we can add a lot more stuff. This one's going to be interrupted a little bit by the fact it's over cargo storage unit, but if we move them around, they're going to be over legs, so you know you can't win completely there. And we're just going to swap out the crew. We're going to get Val to take over, get her some experience. I did get some comments from the last episode saying that you should probably level up Bill and Bob, engineer and scientist, because they will affect the power requirements or the science you gain for the actual stuff in here. Now, I'm not going to worry about it for this trip because I just want to level up pilots. However, doing further sort of science expeditions, we're going to be getting to the two-person lander cannons soon, and we could even put another capsule on top of this if we actually wanted to. It would fit just fine. However, that's fine for now. We're not going to worry about anything else on this. Let's just get it to launch. So off we go, save and launch. Okay, on the launch pad. And this is going to take off pretty quickly. I forgot to put in some launch towers. It shouldn't matter for this case. We've got a nice stable base, and it is regular Kerbal Space Program, not realistic. It's a real solar system. So we are just going to push space, and well, we're going to also throttle down to nearly the bottom, because these two are not affected by the throttle, these two boosters. So press space, and it's going to take off perfectly fine and head upwards. So we're just going to go for a normal ascent and towards orbit. And here we are burning towards circularization. We have the maneuver planner available from MechJeb now, so that can create handy nodes for us. I'm still flying manually at the moment, so I can turn this around, you can see. But eventually you'll have an altitude sort of autopilot ability, and that just again shortcuts things that you do all the time. You know, once you've flown one orbit, you don't need to actually do it ad infinitum. Anyway, so we're going to be coming up towards orbit right now. That is going to push out our APO, so we can get a little bit extra time here. Get rid of that for a second. You'll see we're at 22, and we should probably do that just at the APO. So let's just skip forwards. Get ourselves to, I don't know, 20 seconds remaining. Or even 10 seconds, really. But, yep, 17 seconds. Point ourselves right at prograde. And then we'll just get all the way towards 0 and just make sure things are nice and circular. Just it makes things a little bit easier for planning, and also it saves a little bit of fuel. We've only got 500 meters per second left, so I don't want to use a huge amount of it. And there it is. We're into orbit. So I can turn the lights on if we want to. You'll see that's got a nice wide beam. We'll be able to see the surface of any moon that we land if we land in the dark side. Let's turn those off for a second. And now we're just going to go and plot a maneuver across to Minmus again. So to do that, you can have a few options here if you use MechJeb to plot the maneuvers for you. This is the second option here, by impulsive Hohmann transfer to target. Okay, so if you click intercept only, or in fact, if you just leave everything unticked, press create node at the optimum time, and you'll see it's 1118 meters per second. Now that's because it's just going to try and hit the target. And yep, we definitely would hit the target. But that's quite a lot of delta V, and we can easily make some savings. Instead, change to simple coplanar home and transfer and press create node. And now you'll see we're going to miss entirely. That's nowhere near the orbit. However, it is going to get us exactly where we need to be at the right time. We then use another maneuver node. Let's just create one around about here. And then we can bring in by a mid-course plane change. And you'll see it's right where we want it to be. Right about there. And then at that point, you can do whatever you like. Now, you can adjust this with small corrections. This first maneuver is 921. The second maneuver, however, is only 20. So we're well below 1,000, and you can play around with this as much as you like. We don't have that much left in the stage. We only have 521, and we have 90 minutes to actually do that first burn. So again, we don't have to worry too much about time just yet. So I can just adjust that in a little bit just by moving things around. Let's bring down this scale a little touch, and then we can just shove this around really easily because of just the size of Minmus. And again, if you want to go polar, this is a good place to do it. I don't think I want to go polar. I almost certainly want to go for one of these flat regions. It makes it a little bit easier, and that's there on the equator. And so that's, you know, it's just something we're actually going to go for. So let's just bring ourselves over and up, and you'll see us go along the equator-ish. Yep, 6,000. Why don't we just bring that out a touch? 31,000. That will do. And then we'll have a third maneuver, and we will plot a maneuver just the circularis. So let's just drag that in, and that's perhaps even a bit much. We can just bring it up a little bit. Yeah, doesn't much matter too much. We've just got an orbit there, and we're ready to go. So 3 maneuvers. Unfortunately, Val doesn't have the second level yet, so we've only got these 3 different SAS nodes. Once you get 2 stars, you have almost all the nodes apart from maneuver. So you can't just point directly at maneuver, but you do get the others like the radials and everything else. But we don't need to worry about that. And then you can use MechJeb, Maneuver Planner, to execute nodes. So you can press execute next node, and it will point towards the maneuver. So we don't need the SAS node. And it should auto warp us to the right point as well. Let's just bring on the lights, just so you can see things. That's going to drain the battery, however, until we're back in sunlight. So I'm going to jump forwards until, well, I hope the MechJeb is going to do the job. However, remember we only got 521, and that spark engine is actually not terribly good by comparison to the LV909. Its thrust to weight ratio is really kind of slow, but or low. It's about half, in fact, thrust to weight ratio right there. So in we go. Is MechJeb going to fast forward us again? It probably will do. I hope so. Otherwise, that's not the right place to actually fire the engine. There we go. There's the moon. We're not going to be going that way, but we are going to be going far beyond it. 4, 3, 2, and MechJeb, are you going to go? Go on. There you go. All right. So I'll see you over towards Minmus. And in we come towards the little green dot, the pale green dot rather than the pale blue dot. And we should be heading in very soon. There we go. And we're facing the right direction already to brake for orbit. There we go. We're going to arrive back on the light side of the moon, which is good. Realign, no problem. And then we should be good to go shortly. So in we come towards the Perry. And we should be ready to break into orbit. Anytime. Yep. So 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and burn. So we now have around, well, it's probably going to be about 1800 left once this is done. Maybe 1850. And that should be more than enough to get us onto the moon. Maybe even into a couple of spots. And to get some science while we're down there. Surface samples, EVA reports on the surface, and really nice science that we're going to get. Now, we don't have much else on board. We've got everything else from, orbit, so another trip later, perhaps we could bring other stuff. I just wanted to bring this cargo stuff here with us in the cargo cans, and we'll see if we actually get any, because we're going to leave it behind, and hopefully that will transmit, back to Kerbin. But if it doesn't, then we've got to figure it out. It is a new expansion after all, so let's just stop ourselves from spinning around and decide where we want to land. So we're going to be going around the moon, and we want to decide where to land on here. So I'm just going to, I definitely want to land on the light side, and we want to land on the side facing Kerbin if possible. So kind of around here would do, but by the time we actually get around, this is going to rotate out of the way. So let's just actually fast forward, and let's see whether we can find a nice spot. You see that's going to rotate out towards there. So instead, what I'm going to do is land right here somewhere. That should do fine. But we're not on that kind of inclination right now. However, it doesn't take much to actually cause that to occur. Remember, Minmus, not very massive. So we're going to brake with retro, and then we can adjust the landing position with normal and bring that out a little bit. Now, when we actually land over here to the right, remember, the whole moon is rotating. So by the time we get there, we're going to be left of it somewhere. So as long as we get it somewhere in the line of rotation, that's the main thing. And we'll tell it to execute that next node because we don't need to worry about that anymore, that we have Moon Maneuver Planner. And then once we're on a final approach, we'll make some braking burns around about here and then come down almost straight down. One good tool to actually do that is to use Smart ASS. Smart ASS, once we're out of the autopilot section, will actually give us various different vectors we can point at, additional to all of these in the maneuver node, the maneuver sort of window. For example, one of them will be pointing straight up, which is good for coming in on final. As long as you're heading straight down anyway, then locking yourself to up means that you don't have to worry about side slipping, again, as long as you are coming straight down. And there goes our maneuver. It's firing. And now we're on a collision course. Well, we can get out of it, but we're not going to. And looks like I overestimated, well, underestimated, I guess, where the planet is, or the moon is going to rotate to. And you'll see it's come all the way over here, and we're still on the way in. If we have a look at how far we are, we want to come down on that green area somewhere, but we may end up, going a little bit too far. So if we lock ourselves up, well, we can do a few different things, but if we lock ourselves up for now, we can just boost that a little bit if we need to come in over to the top of these hills. Now, you can't really tell there, but you'll see just how close we're going to end up. And I'm not sure how close that's going to be. So why don't I just fast forward a little bit? Yeah, I think we're going to clear it just fine. So we're going to use Smart ASS, and this just means we have different maneuver nodes. So surface velocity minus is the one we actually want to go for. And that's going to be able to slow us down. We have a choice of when we actually enable that. We've got 1816 remaining, so we can choose. We want to be over the very, very flat surface before we do this, and maybe even within walking distance of this slightly hilly area, something like that kind of thing will do. So I'm going to skip forwards a little bit until we're over that area. And here we go. We're just going to burn. That's going to slow us down quite quickly, but not hugely quick, as quick as the Terrier would. And this will bring us in quite nicely to a sort of vertical. Now, we are going to just change both off for a second. I'm going to hold with SAS and fly this manually, because I'm going to push this marker up towards the center so that we're going to be coming down and not any other direction. So I'm going to follow along behind it, and that will just push it in that direction. And you'll see it's going to be quite quick towards the middle. We've only got to use 200 meters per second, which is great. And then we're just going to approach this and just push that retrograde marker until it's over that center dot. There or thereabouts. In fact, let's just go there. That's again where I might get that enhanced nav ball. It helps a little bit just to get that absolutely perfect. I think we just need to do a little bit more. There we go. That will do fine. And now we can just go into surface mode and lock ourselves to up. And everything's fine. So we're going to be going straight down onto a clear area. You can see where the shadow is already. That's the shadow of us coming in. And we can do all kinds of other things. For example, like we can turn on the lights. You can't see anything right now, but you will be able to when we get a lot closer to the surface. Skipping forwards. And we're coming into land, so I am just burning off some of our velocity. We do not need to do those crazy suicide burns. We just want to reduce our speed until it's survivable. And a few meters per second would be nice. So there you can see our shadow coming in. And we can slow ourselves right the way down. And come in for a nice soft landing. We are going to be somewhat sideways, but it shouldn't really matter on Minmus. There we go. See the absorption of our legs. And we're down. And we're pretty much down and locked. So we've got nice area. If this was dark, we'd be able to see below us. It's actually quite nicely in the light, so I don't have any problems here. And from this point, we can get out. Grab an EVA report. Landed. That's 24 science by itself. Good. And we'll just board back in again. Take a crew report here as well. And we'll keep that. And then let's get out. Let go. Space. Use RCS. And we will then just be able to get away from the rest of the craft and come down onto the surface. So slow ourselves down a little bit. And first landing on another, I was going to say planetary body, another lunar body in this case. And we're landed. Okay. So can we actually take surface samples yet? Don't think we can. Maybe that just needs another upgrade. We can certainly plant a flag though, so why don't we just do that? Head over here somewhere and plant the flag. There we go. And Val is the first Kerbal on another body. So, first landing. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to deploy the science equipment just like we did on the launch pad, and you've already seen that happen, so you don't need to see it again. But of course, it's nice and available near the bottom of the lander. And here you'll see what I was talking about earlier. The science rate is only 5% because a pilot deployed it. On the surface of Kerbin, a scientist deployed it, so it was 25%. So presumably that affects the science rate that comes in per hour. And of course, you can choose to just bring along a specialist to deploy this. However, we do have the full setup, 2 photovoltaic panels, the Goob ED monitor, or whatever it's called, Goob ED monitor, and the experiment control station. And of course, it's right next to the flag, so we can find it in future if we need to, well, get back here for any particular reason, like deploying more science experiments. And if we go back to the Space Center here, you'll see that we have a deployed central station. So what I'm hoping will happen is I'm able to go back there in future without anyone there and actually make sure that that's running and that we're getting science back over here. That would be cool if that happens. But of course we have the Landertron as well, which is over there. So let's go back and fly that. And then what we'll do is just use that to actually get a bit more science. Of course, we can get another 24 or whatever it is. Whatever I actually got, was it from EVA? Maybe from EVA while landed. And we're on the lesser flats. So again, like last episode, if you go onto the X Science and choose space near Minmus, well, if you choose, instead of doing that, we've say landed at Minmus. You'll see we have all the crew reports to do, and they will give us around 15 science each. Yep, 15 science exactly, in fact. And the EVA reports while landed will give us 24 science each. So if you want to go ahead and do all of these, you'll get a huge amount of science just like we did last episode. However, you will run out of fuel before then. We're down at 1643. If you remember last episode, we comfortably got back to Kerbin with about 250. And then, of course, we've got to get up into orbit from here. So maybe leave another 250 or something to get into orbit, maybe a little bit more than that. And, you've got some spare. So, we got like 800 to play with or more than that. So we can just take off again and we can just use the spark. Remember, we're locked to up, so we're going to have to change over to SAS. And then we can choose to go whichever way we want. In this case, because the hills are that way, we may as well just try. And if we zoom in on the map view, you can see where we're going to actually land. There we go. We're just going to head in that direction. Head up and try and land on the top. I think that may even still be lowlands. So that will do. There we go. And we're heading this direction. That's used about, 100. So we're going to just flip ourselves back around to retrograde. Right now, that's pointing the wrong direction, of course, because we're still going up. So we have to head over there and come back down again. So I'm just going to go to turn off SAS, and we'll just use Smart ASS to lock to surface velocity minus. And let's see us come in for another landing, I think. And down we come again for another landing. There we go. Under 2 meters per second, perfectly fine. And we're down and ready to get another couple of basically, well, another couple of stuff, a little bit science experiments. Now, we don't have a container on this one, so we're just going to take data and store experiments, take the EVA report, get back in, and we should be able to take another crew report. Yep, take that one. We'll get back out again, and then we can just take all the data and put it all back in again, and the usual dance for science. And now we have another set of stuff to actually take with us. So each one of these pairs that we actually do is going to give us pretty much 40 science. So we've already got 80 science as it is. Now, of course, we can't really spend that right now because we need lots more money for the R&D upgrade. It's going to need nearly 1 million credits. So we're going to have to figure out how to get a lot more of that. However, you can use this sort of lander to get anywhere you like on Minmus. I'm not going to actually worry about doing too much of this. It was just more of a proof of concept, and it works perfectly well. So I'm just going to turn off the lights, and then we're ready to get back into orbit. So I'm just going to lock ourselves up for a second. I'm going to bring our throttle up. There we go. And that will stay locked up, and then we're just going to choose to head east. So I'm going to point north down on the ball and then head this direction, and we'll be heading over to the east. And of course I'm locked up, so I just need to turn that lock back off again now that I'm away from the ground. And there we go. So we'll lock ourselves onto dead east, like that. And let's change to the map view and let's see where it actually gets to. You'll see we already get to quite high APO quite quickly. So we're just going to get up to, I don't know, something like 11, maybe 11 or 12. We don't need to go very much higher at all. So 9, 10, 11, and let's just stop there. At this point, we can create a new node. We can use Maneuver Planner if you like for circularize, and create a node, and the circularization will go. So we can execute that, and everything will proceed as normal. Now, of course, I don't think we can actually do anything but physical time warp because we're quite close to the surface, but it will take 81 meters per second to circularize. And we probably used, probably another 100 or so getting us to here. So, yeah, keep a reserve for 500 before you try and go back to the planet. And there we go. We can fast forward and circularize. And of course, by this point, you've seen this before. So we're just going to head back to Kerbin orbit. Now, we can't land. We have no ability to survive coming back into the atmosphere, but we can get back to the orbit. And we want to make sure that when we do arrive back at the orbit, we make some adjustments so that we're in a nice equatorial orbit with enough room below us or above us in the orbits for us to then be able to approach with another vessel and do docking, which is one of the missions we're being asked to do, which we're going to do next episode. Now, you can also use the Maneuver Planner to return from the moon. Now, we've done all this manually, of course, so we already know how to do that. And it is going to plot that for us. It's burning 46 minutes. And you'll see it's doing the same thing. It's heading us back along the track of our orbit. But of course, we're going to be very, very inclined when that actually happens. However, we will get away from our moon, and then we'll be able to make other adjustments once we're out here. So I will just again tell it to execute that node. I have no problems with that. And we'll see you back at the base. And before going back to the base, I just want to briefly explain why I've left quite a lot of fuel in here, why we've not been hopping around with this particular vessel. That's because we can't head back in. So we have to do another braking burn right here. So again, with Maneuver Planner, we're just going to say change the apoapsis to 161, i.e. our peri is 160, so basically recircularize ourselves at the next peri when it's most efficient to do so. And if we create that node, you'll see that's 867 of our 962. So a lot of fuel used, but we can actually afford it. So we can bring ourselves back to a circular orbit again. And finally, we just adjusted the inclination back to 0 using the change inclination to 0 Maneuver Planner. And now we're pretty much in an equatorial orbit waiting for rescue. So I'm going to turn off the lights and save a little bit of power for Val, who's just going to sit there in the dark. Well, with 63 meters per second of delta V remaining. Bit close, but it will do the job. Which of course means we need to rescue her. So we have this, well, we will have a mission at some point. I may have to fast forward until this one expires in a day or so to be able to get the docking 2 ships together mission. But we want to try it out anyway, so we'll just wait for that mission to pop along. However, in the meantime, we're just going to design a bit of a sort of a craft to actually go and well, pick her up. So we want the Landertron again, and we're just going to use this as a base, and let's just call this Rescue 1. Okay, so we've engineered the situation on purpose, so we should go and modify this. So let's get rid of all the expensive bits. Well, lights actually would be quite useful. And we're not going to worry about that docking port right there. We are going to put another command pod on top because we're going to need to have room for 2 people here. Which means, that's a good point actually, I'm going to need, if I do it that way, maybe we actually just go with something new. Yeah, let's actually just reroute this part, and then we'll just tear off everything below, I don't know, below here? Or below here. No, from there on downward will do fine. So we don't need the majority of this, so let's just reroute that part. There we go, and take all the rest off. And the old-fashioned approach is to enable this by stacking 2 up like this. Whether that will survive through heating is another thing entirely. So they're going to need a heat shield regardless for coming back. And then on top, we're going to have a Clampotron Junior, which means the parachutes are going to have to be different. We can't use that anymore. So for the parachutes, we are going to go with what options do we have for parachutes? We have the side-mounted ones, yeah, the radial ones. So we're going to put these on either side, like that. Okay, that should do fine. Maybe move them up a little bit. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, and then below this we're going to want our orbital maneuvering stage, sort of a service module if you like. So we're just going to assemble that with a decoupler first of all. So in coupling, want a decoupler. And then the fuel tank itself. So that could be something as small as a 200. And we're also going to want some sort of RCS tank. So I'm not sure which of these tanks will actually support RCS. Obviously monoprop, I should say. So you do get a little bit in the capsules themselves, but I'd rather have extra. So let's take a look at which ones will actually store monoprop. Any of you? Liquid fuel oxidizer, no. Variants, no. Do we have anything in here that will store it? Well, this will have to do for now. We only have these tanks that will actually support the monoprop. So we have a spark underneath them and in the center of them, and then these are around the outside. So they should give us 80 plus another 20 in from 10 in each of these. You can of course take these off, and then we'll just change these over to the white variants. They're looking more like a modern spacecraft. And then of course we've got RCS ports. We don't really have the luxury to put them like either end away from the center of mass, so you could have just put them where they can, and we don't have different sizes in vanilla Kerbal, so at least not available to us yet. So that does mean that we then just need to finish this off with a separator, and that should be straightforward. Decoupler, will you attach to that spark? Oh, you will. That's quite nicely fitting as well. We might need to just retract these in a little bit more if I want to be a perfectionist, but that's fine. And then everything else will fit quite nicely in a much slimmer fairing. So let's delete the fairing, build it back up. There we go, that way. And there, I want to say. There we go. And again, make sure clamshells on, ejection force is up. And we have a rescue craft. So we're going to fly with one person in there. So Jeb's obviously going to fly. Doesn't matter which command pod. Oh, in fact, no, it does matter which command pod, because we want the docking ports on the top and we're going to be docking. So if they want to transfer easily, they need to be able to get through, or Val needs to get through the docking ports. So Jeb, let's just put them in there, and I'm hoping that's the right way around. Can we tell which one the that actually is. I don't think we can. So I may have to do a bit of shimmying around in orbit. And then how much delta V have we got? Well, that upper stage is now, this stage here is only a spark engine, so we don't have very much fuel in it. We have enough for about 900 meters per second. That's more than enough for orbital stuff. And then everything else further down just needs rearranging, basically. Its staging is wrong, so that's our upper staging. And full separation, so we need to add wherever that thing is there. Yes, both of those are now paired together. Then this needs to fire. Why are you only 274 meters per second for a Terrier? Is it just that heavy, the top stage? Yeah, well, I suppose we could go to a Terrier, but I'm not going to worry about that. And then I may need to rearrange some of these other stages. Because, well, we don't need 4,700. We can get away with less than that. What happens if we take these sides off? Come on, whoops, we need to be out of that mode. So yeah, 4,100. That's still fine. We can get rid of you. And we can take off with 1.63. So this is actually perfectly fine. We've got the starting stage. We've got LV909. And then a third stage for orbital maneuvers with RCS available. Important. So we're going to be flying this or a variant of this next episode. And I hope you join me for that. Feel free to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's episode. Click on subscribe and share. Press the bell if you want notifications for future episodes, but more importantly than everything else, comments for other people who are playing through Breaking Ground. Otherwise, as always guys, thanks for watching.